So I've been using the M4 13-inch iPad Pro, this one, for about 2 weeks now. I've got quite a lot of thoughts, and also Apple sent me they sent me this to check out as well, and it's thrown a massive spanner in the works. Got so many iPads in front of me. Okay, so I've been using this M4 13-inch iPad Pro for roughly 2 weeks now, and I want to answer some very hopefully simple questions. Does that thinness have any impact whatsoever on the ownership experience? Does that tandem OLED display matter? Are the new accessories worth buying, bearing in mind that you can't use the previous generation Apple Pencil and Magic Keyboard on this new iPad Pro? And most importantly, who should buy this? Now, to answer these questions as accurately as possible, I've been using this as my main machine apart from video editing and that sort of stuff. So it's taken place of my M2, sorry, so many M chips, my M2 15-inch MacBook Air. So I've been using this for everything from admin to writing, email, all the kind of business, officey, computery, normal type stuff. And I want to help you spend the right amount of money. Let's get into this. Firstly, just a very quick word from today's sponsor, which is NordVPN. And if you're using your shiny new M4 iPad Pro, or a Mac for that matter, NordVPN makes sure you're safe online. And the best thing about NordVPN is that with just one click, you're safe. Whether you're out on the road working or you just want to enjoy your favourite movies and your favourite TV shows from home, NordVPN helps you do that and makes sure you're safe from malware. The threat protection feature guards your every click while you're browsing online, and if you're downloading stuff, it also checks for malware. NordVPN even keeps an eye on your email as well, so if you're being sent links, it will double check to make sure that that link isn't sending you potentially to a malicious website. Equally, if you're browsing online and you're fed up with all those pop-ups ruining your experience, threat protection blocks ads for a much smoother browsing experience. You can even hit the brilliantly named kill switch, which makes sure that your data is never exposed by mistake. And if you're wondering, NordVPN does not track or share any of your data, so you can sit back, relax, and just enjoy a better version of the internet. And you can do so on all of your devices. NordVPN also has a dark web monitor which constantly scans for your personal data and alerts you if anything is found. It's a bit like having your own personal online security guard, and we all need that these days. I've been using NordVPN on this iPad Pro since I set it up, and I wouldn't be without it. And the fact they have 24/7 support is the icing on the cake. And the best thing is, guys, I've worked with NordVPN to get you a fantastic deal. You can get 4 months extra, and there's a risk-free 30-day trial. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Go and check it out below. Let's start with the design, and, well, we all know, I think by now, that this is the thinnest Apple product ever made. It's thinner than the iPod Nano. It's thinner than everything Apple has made before. It's so thin, in fact, that the Apple Pencil Pro is wider than it. So when you put the Apple Pencil Pro on its charging thing, it overhangs on both sides. How have they fit all that stuff in here? How does this have a better on paper chip than a MacBook Pro? The big question is, does that make a difference to the ownership experience? And not really. Apart from the fact that you know you've got the thinnest Apple product ever made, and for some people that's a thing, and I'm not judging those people at all. That's absolutely fine if that's you. It's incredibly impressive, but it doesn't make any difference to the day-to-day usage of this iPad. Beyond that, the design, the build quality, it's an iPad Pro. This is the best tablet on the market in terms of build, look, finish. Bend gate doesn't really exist at the moment unless you're the sort of person, we all know who these people are, or who one of these people is, who does this with iPads. That's going to bend if you do that. Providing you don't do that with your iPad, you'll be fine. When it comes to the display, it is impressive once again. We have this tandem OLED panel, which is basically 2 OLED screens fused together somehow. That means that Apple has managed to get the brightness they desire, and basically we've waited a long time for an OLED panel on an iPad Pro, and this is why. They had to get the right kind of manufacturing process, and it involved sandwiching together in a much more technical way 2 OLED panels. And it looks fantastic. The blacks are very dark, very deep, very rich. The colours are warmer. If you compare the M4 iPad Pro to the M2 iPad Pro, for instance, this one is definitely warmer. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest, but it's just a nicer display. That is if you are A/B testing this one against this one, and only people like me do that. The good news is, if you buy the M4 iPad Pro now, you're going to be absolutely overjoyed by that display because it is lovely. I would just say that if you're going from an M1 or an M2 or even a generation before that iPad Pro to this M4 version, don't expect to be completely bowled over. This is iterative, it's not revolutionary. The screen size compared to the M2 version, it's a tiny bit bigger, but it's imperceptible basically. The speakers, they're the same, I think. I don't know if they're technically the same, but they sound very similar. Now, in terms of going for the 13-inch version versus the 11-inch version, if you've watched this channel for quite a while, you'll know that I've never been a big fan of the 11-inch iPad Pro because of the iPad Air. I could just never work out why you'd go for the iPad Pro, the small one, over the iPad Air. But now I've got this, I've only been using it for about a day. Apple sent me it to try out. I might have been wrong with that. There's something about this form factor with the Magic Keyboard, which I'll come on to in a moment, to the point where I'm thinking, do I send this one back? The good news now is that the 11-inch gets the exact same display technology as the big one, as the 13-inch. That wasn't the case with the M2 iPad Pro. The 11-inch version of that had a slightly worse display. That isn't the case anymore. Every time I get to performance these days on smartphones and tablets, I come to the same conclusion for me. Now, I'm not the kind of person who will sit here and do benchmarks because I can't think of anything worse. People that do it, I'm impressed by them because they have so much more patience than me. I just don't care. The reason I don't care is because all of this stuff feels incredibly quick, incredibly smooth. I've got no idea how to maximize the power in this M2 iPad Pro, let alone an M4 iPad Pro. I would not know where to start. I could try in Logic Pro, which is a very meaty application, obviously, but even with that, I'd get bored of, I'd run out of inspiration before I got past 128 tracks of music. These things are incredibly powerful. Something's going to happen with iPadOS 18. It may have happened already by the time that you watch this, who knows, but certainly by the end of this year, we're going to have something, hopefully, that starts to make real use of this incredibly fast M4 chip, particularly when it comes to AI. That's the big thing. The only thing to say is that the base model, which is this one, which has how much does it have? 256 gig of storage, has 8 gig of RAM. If you want 16 gig of RAM, you have to go for the 1 terabyte or the 2 terabyte version. And that gets quite expensive. The other thing that you get in the 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte version of the M4 iPad Pro is a 10-core CPU versus the measly 9-core CPU that you get in this one. Would you notice that? Nah. So no one's questioning the power that's inherent within this M4 iPad Pro. All we're doing really is waiting for it to be fully unleashed. Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro get very close to that, but we need more. Let's get on to the accessories, and I'm going to put my neck out here and say that I think the Magic Keyboard, the whatever generation it is now, and the Apple Pencil Pro are the crowning glory of this M4 iPad Pro. And yes, I'm aware they add a lot to the purchase price, but I do think you get a lot for your money. The kicker with this is the fact that if you have a second generation Apple Pencil, this one, it doesn't work with the M4 iPad Pro because they've had to move the magnets. No, they've had to change the magnets, sorry, because they've moved the FaceTime camera from there basically to there, which was the right thing to do. That's made a big difference, trust me. However, the Apple Pencil Pro is brilliant. So firstly, you get this haptic thing. Basically, when you squeeze it, there's a haptic motor in here, which makes it feel like it's clicking, just like the trackpad on the Magic Keyboard and the MacBook Pro. It's uncanny. It does weird things to your brain. It genuinely feels like you're clicking it. And when you click it, you get a menu on the screen so you can choose a different tool or whatever, and developers have access to this as well, so they can make use of that squeezy, clicky thing. It's also got a gyroscope in here, which means as you twist it in your fingers, the tool on the display twists as well. Not something that I would use myself, but if you're a calligrapher or an artist, I think it would be incredibly useful. Just like the second generation Apple Pencil, this has the hover mode, which is when you literally hover the Apple Pencil Pro just above the display and you get a little dot which signifies where it's going to drop. That's very useful. The other thing that is incredibly mind-blowing about this is that you get a shadow of the tool that you're using. So if you've picked a brush or something like that, if you just hover the Apple Pencil Pro just above the display, you can see an outline of that brush. As you turn the Apple Pencil Pro in your fingers, that tool, the shadow of it, turns as well and reacts to it in real time. This is Apple at their best. I love it when they do ridiculously pointless but impressive stuff like this. So the Apple Pencil Pro is fantastic. The new Magic Keyboard, guys, is even better. There's quite a few reasons for this. One of them is the aluminium frame here, which is the palm rest as you're typing. This feels finally like it's really worth the money, because this isn't cheap. I think it's about £349, but having that made from aluminium just feels better, as does the new haptic trackpad. So at the minute, that's not clicking because it's not a real button. However, when I connect my iPad Pro to it, it turns into a button with that magic haptic thing, and it's much bigger than the previous generation. The other one was a little bit cramped at times. You don't get any kind of cramped feeling with this. It's spot on. The other thing that is spot on is the function key row. So we have an escape key finally. We have all the controls for media, for screen brightness, volume. You can lock your iPad from here as well, finally. And it has faster pass-through charging, so that charges, I think, at 60 watts now, whereas before it was 22 watts. It was very slow. This is now much, much quicker, and it makes a big difference. So who should buy the M4 iPad Pro? Firstly, if you have an M2 iPad Pro, don't bother. I doubt Apple is expecting many M2 iPad Pro owners to go for this, because the differences aren't worth it. You know, the display on this new one is amazing. It's the best display Apple has ever made, I'm sure, but the one on the M2 iPad Pro is just as lovely. Now, if you have an earlier iPad Pro, so perhaps you have the M1 version or one of the A-chip versions of the iPad Pro, I can understand why you're looking at this one thinking, ooh. And if you are making that noise, it's possibly worth doing it, mainly because of the accessories. I'll be completely honest, I think if you're fed up with your M1 iPad Pro, you're a bit cheesed off with the Magic Keyboard, and you need a bit more from the Apple Pencil, this makes sense. And then should you wait until iPadOS 18 drops later this year? Yeah, I think you should. I think unless your existing iPad is on its last legs and you need one of these now, if you can wait, and let's be honest, most people can, I would just hold off. Let's see what they do with iPadOS 18. Regardless, if you're going for the M4 iPad Pro, I'd love to know, are you going for the big one or this smaller one, which I keep looking at, and have I made the wrong choice? Help me out, guys. Let me know down below what you're doing. However, if all of this is way too expensive, I completely understand. And if you're thinking, maybe, just maybe, I could get away with the 13-inch M2 iPad Air, keep watching for a link to my full review of this.